Hello there, lovely folks of YouTube. Ren here. I want to talk about this little plant behind me, which is just getting ready to bloom. It has started to put out a few flowers. This is an interesting little plant. Now, many people grow this plant, even though it is probably one of the most widely grown and used botanicals in the world. This plant right here, this is Camellia Sinensis, which is most commonly known as tea. This is the plant that we get tea from. Black tea, green tea, oolong tea, white tea, all come from this plant. There are other camellia species that are typically grown in gardens for decorative purposes. I have two of them actually. Camellia japonica and Camellia sasquana are both very decorative plants. This little plant, though, I grow specifically not so much for its looks, but just because of what it is. Although its looks are very nice. This is a fall blooming plant, the camellia. So, I mean, it's October here, and it's just starting to bloom with these lovely little flowers here, as you can see. Even though it's not grown for these flowers, they're still very nice flowers with a very, very nice fragrance. It smells vaguely like sweet tea, believe it or not. And I apologize that there's a blue jay that's fighting with another blue jay over the apples on my apple tree, so there's going to be a little bit of a raucous going on in the background. I apologize for that. It's better than the wind that I had on my first take. Anyway. Let's get back on track. Tea plant. So, there are two subspecies of this plant that are grown. Camellia sinensis, which is the Chinese tea, and then Camellia sinensis Asamika, which is Indian or Assam tea. Both make the same plant, the same product, just in slightly different varieties. All the different varieties of tea that we have out on the market are basically the leaves of this plant that are harvested at different times from different places on the plant, or are processed in different ways. But it all comes from this one plant. So, this is a camellia. If you're not familiar with camellias need warmer climates. Zone 7 and higher, basically. I live in Zone 7, so I'm about as far north as this plant can grow. If you live anywhere outside of the southern United States, I apologize, you're not going to be able to grow this plant. You know, I grew up in Chicago. We didn't have camellias. We didn't have a lot of the things that I can grow here, but it's a lovely plant if you have the opportunity to grow it. It does, usually most camellias like a bit of shade. I have mine in shade. This one actually can tolerate more sun than the other camellias. It gets more leaf growth in the sun. Part of the reason mine looks so scanty is because it's growing right under my tree and it gets more shade. But can grow up to 20 feet in height. Mine is not quite that tall yet. It's just getting up just about 4.5 feet right now. Although they grow up to 20 feet, they're usually pruned in such a way to keep them within 5 or 6 feet in height because that makes it easier to harvest. So naturally, though, they will grow up to about 20 feet. The camellias in general like acid soil, which we also have in abundance here in the southern United States. But if you live somewhere that doesn't have acid soil, it doesn't hurt to put a little acidic amender into the soil, whether that be even just a pine needle mulch will be fine to acidify that soil. Do like acid, and they also like even moisture as well. One of the reasons that this is doing so well this year and putting out this big bumper crop of flowers is because we had so much rain this year. I didn't have to water it at all, and it's just really happy because it loves the water. So I also have mine. It's in the wet area by the downspout, so like with all my other wet loving plants right next to my elder, for example. So yeah, definitely likes moisture. Oh look, there goes the plane flying into RIC. Okay, I had to restart because that airplane just completely threw me off. But I think I was talking about the growing of this plant and basically saying it likes moist, it likes acid. You need to be in zone 7 or higher. Sorry for y'all who live in the northern United States or anywhere where it's cold. Them's the breaks, you know. Anyway, I really got thrown off. I apologize. So let's talk about some of the magical uses of this plant. Obviously, the primary number one use that I'm going to put it to personally is to drink it, because it's tea. That's what it's for. Green tea, oolong tea, black tea, white tea, they're all just different methods of processing this plant, but it's all basically the same thing. The methods of processing can put slightly different casts on it if you want to get really deep into the nitty-gritty, but we're just going to talk about the plant overall, because I don't have time to dig into that deep, honestly. It's a rabbit hole that you can really get down, and I really encourage you to just kind of do your own, have your own experience with this. I'm here to just kind of set the milestone and start you on your path. I really encourage you to walk from here, because that's really what all this witchcraft stuff is about, ultimately, isn't it? But anyway, so Cunningham puts this plant as being under the governance of the sun, having solar influences, which I can definitely see. If you look at the mythology of this plant, obviously we don't have a lot of Western magical background on this plant, but in the East, in China, where this plant originates, huge amount of mythology around this plant. The mythological emperor Shennong is the one who was credited as having discovered tea when a few leaves from the camellia plant fell in his bowl of hot water that he was drinking in the garden. I'm not sure, I'm not clear on the story as to why he was drinking a bowl of hot water. That might be something in the myth that was lost in the myriad of, game of telephone that finally brought it to my attention, because I certainly can't read the original script in which the original language that it was written. I'm having to rely on people who've translated it, and of course translations always put their own spin on it. But anyway, drinking his bowl of hot water, the leaves fall in and he discovers tea, and he's amazed because it's warming and uplifting and tastes delicious. I can definitely agree with that. So, what we can see in that story, definitely that warming, that uplifting, that is a solar influence. The good fortune of having the leaves just happen to serendipitously fall into his bowl of hot water that he just happened to be drinking out in the garden, that good fortune is also a solar influence. Definitely see a lot of sun influences in this story. There's a variant on this story that says that Shennong was also a master herbalist and would discover the medicinal uses of plants by basically eating them himself and determining what they did to his body, which is super dangerous and would often leave him open to eating poisons, which he did on the reg. His counteracting agent for this was to chew on the leaves of the tea plant. Now, you can't use tea to actually counteract real poisons. I'm just going to lay that out there. But metaphorically, we can look at this as a metaphor for neutralizing spiritual poisons, getting rid of negative vibrations, bringing in positive, uplifting vibrations. Again, a very, very solar influence on this plant. So definitely I can see those solar, those fire elemental influences in this plant. Now, Cunningham is not... Cunningham is contradicted by Paul Bayerl. Paul Bayerl actually puts this plant on the governance of Mercury, which I can also see, because these things aren't cut and dry, black and white. Mercury, of course, governs communication. Good luck is also a Mercury thing, so in addition to being solar. But that communication aspect, I mean, you think about it. How many of us need our cup of caffeine in the morning in order to be able to string together a coherent sentence? Me. So yeah, I can definitely see Mercury influences in both coffee and tea from that aspect. There's also the fact that tea has been widely used for centuries as a divination tool. Tasseomancy, tea leaf reading, that's a very Mercury thing as well. So it could go either way, honestly. And that's one of the reasons why I always encourage you to grow these plants yourselves. That's why I give you this information, is so you can get that information and then build your own practice on top of, based on your own personal experiences, because a lot of these things are very subjective. don't have an actual scientific method, like a guaranteed like consensus on how to determine the planetary influence of a plant. It's, you know, there are things that we can look at that make us lean one way or the other, and we may agree with other people's arguments for why that is the case, but, you know, it's not something we can test and draw a definitive conclusion on. We have to go based on our own experience and our own gut. And I feel the best way to do that is to actively interact with the plant, which is why I have this little guy here. I don't actually harvest any of this plant for tea. I buy my tea from the store. But I like to have this plant because understanding where it comes from and how it grows and just interacting and feeling the energy of that plant helps me build my practice and better understand how I can use the plant. Personally, I also think these little flowers here, definite Venus influence in addition to solar. So if you want to have good luck in relationships, these flowers are great to use. And it's got ants on it. But, so yeah, these things aren't cut and dry. You know, we have to build our own experiences based on the paths that other people have walked before us. So that's one of the things that tea can share with us. I really do love this plant. I love tea. I'm just going to say it, you know, that's why I put so many tea blends out there. It's because I freaking love tea. It's amazing and it's great. And I'm really happy to share this little plant with you guys. So anyway, I hope this video finds you well, and I will see you again soon.